And hopefully our group will show up. That would be nice. Maybe. Alright, I had this open here. I kind of wanted to send them an email one more time before we get too deep into this. And now I'm going to have to try to keep all my family theory feminist homework separate from...
That's okay, you can share your knowledge. I would be more than happy to learn.
Oh, okay, good. Christians. Why do I never have her... Do you have her Gmail address? I feel like I've asked you so many times and I've never saved it before.
Oh, let me see if I can find it.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure there was like a 19 in there. Oh, wait, she's here. Heather, can you hear us? Heather, can you hear us?
Maybe she's just logging on.
That could be too. And then Stephanie, I sent it to her twice, so...
Hello! Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you guys?
Fabulous.
So are you in Rexburg right now?
Yeah, I am.
Did you get flooded or no?
No, I live on the second floor, and I don't know why, because we live at the bottom of the hill, so I don't know why we didn't get anything, but...
Well, it doesn't help that
well,
all
that's
the
good news.
basement apartments are...
Yeah, and we live like right next to a canal, so I guess it just all went in the canals.
Hey, whatever works.
I know, seriously, that's awesome.
Okay, so we were just waiting for Stephanie, but we're going to go ahead and get started, because this is a good group we have here today. Alright. Okay, so, sorry. I'm copying and pasting the questions that we have to cover in the chat. Alright, did you guys have a chance to read both of the articles, or I guess the talk in the article?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay, what did you... I don't know if we should... What did you think about them first, or just go through the questions and...
We can just go through the questions, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, which of these readings did you side more with, and why?
So, personally, I sided more with Sister Beck's talk. I think there are definitely some truths to the other article, but I don't think I agree wholeheartedly with that one. I don't think she was necessarily, she as in Sister Beck, I don't think she was necessarily saying that homemaking had to be like a world-class high, which I know that some of them took offense to that. I mean, homemaking can mean a million different things besides having a clean home. You know, she mentioned some of those things when she said you have to be good homemakers by keeping your covenants, teaching your children, nurturing your children, being kind, understanding, respectful, inclusive. Like, all those things make a good homemaker and not necessarily like a housemaker, if that makes sense.
Yes, I agree with that. I thought that I sided with Sister Beck too, and I read the talk first, and I was like, man, I feel like so empowered and good about myself, because I'm 5 months pregnant right now. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be in in the home for a while.
Yes, yeah.
But some of the things, yeah, I highlighted the values that she said, the value that women place on motherhood in this life and the attributes of motherhood they attain here will rise with them in the resurrection, as opposed to like some of the other things in the article that were just like, I feel like they were taken out of context a lot. Like, one of the things that the other article said was, we reject teachings that encourage women to shoulder ultimate responsibility for every aspect of child rearing and family life, and to take on shame, guilt, and guilt when things do not go according to plan. I'm like, that's not what I got out of
No.
the article or the talk at all. So I don't know. That kind of like, ooh, that was a little apostate for me.
Yeah, so I actually had my husband help me look at both of these articles because I guess he's kind of a feminist, but not like part of like the ordained women movement. And he's written articles on just like everything that's going on because I guess he feels for feminists. And he feels for the women who are part of the ordained women movement. And not to say that the article What Women Know is part of the movement, but I definitely think that the What Women Know gave some great points, like reflecting on mothers and women in general. But I feel like I definitely sided more with mothers who know because, like at first it was a knee-jerk reaction for me. So my emotions took over like my logical reasoning, and my husband was like, no, you have to look at both sides. You have to look at both articles without any biased opinion, and that was really hard for me to do. But I found that when I did that, I still sided with Sister Beck's talk, and I felt like the Mothers Who Know is directed towards mothers and not women in general. And women and mothers, I feel like, are different. And I think they're different because, you know, women are different from men, and men are definitely different from fathers. Like, we're all equal, but they're different roles. And different roles within the family. And so I think that although What Women Know gave great insight into how women as a whole are no less valuable than mothers, Sister Beck is addressing mothers specifically and not all women.
That is a great point. That is a really great point. I had a similar thought too. When I was listening to Sister Beck's talk, I didn't read it, I just listened to it. And she was talking about like mothers specifically, like you were saying. And then the What Women Know took the side of like men and women have this together. Like, but she wasn't talking about fathers. She was talking about mothers. And so the fact that they had to bring that in, I think was more of a turnoff to me, not necessarily that I don't believe it, because I do think that fathers do nurture their children. That's something that is talked about in the Family Proclamation. But the fact that they got offended because fathers were not also in there, I don't know. I think that was just kind of a little bit harder for me to take in. And it was probably because I was biased. Just because I'm like, no, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's a really good point.
I definitely like that. I didn't realize that. Now, looking back, I'm like, okay, they were written, yeah, almost from two different perspectives as opposed to women and mothers. And, like, I think Sister Beck may have mentioned, like, the future mothers or other ways of mothering, but it's not, I mean, that's the title. That's not who you are completely. So I like that.
Yeah. I'm really glad that my husband was like, you know, you have to look at both of these articles and like really like look between
I hate it when husbands tell you how to do your homework.
I know, what? Feminism. No, just kidding.
Yeah. But I don't know. It was a great learning experience for me because like even taking like the capstone class here,
yeah.
like I took it my sophomore year, and so that was like 2 years ago, and it's not as fresh in my mind as it was to like really look at both sides and not have like a biased opinion.
Okay, I like the next question. What did you think was the tone and focus of What Women Know, the What Women Know article? Did you see any of the philosophies of men mingled with doctrine? If so, where? Is that all one question, or is that?
I know, right? That's all
Like,
one question.
where did you see? Okay, yeah. Okay, when I started reading it, I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be good. Like, I totally had the impression that it was gonna be like all for it, and referencing that this is the talk that she gave, and here's some of the things that it covered, and then I saw that it kind of slowly started to mingle in some of the worldly feminist, like crazy feminist things into the article, and I was like, okay, there are some things that are like super good in the What Women Know article, but there are other things that are just like, I don't think I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of them specifically that I noticed that bothered me a lot was, I don't remember which number it was down the list, but it says, we reverence the responsibility to choose how, when, and whether we become parents. And for me, like, okay, I don't know if this is just me thinking about it weird, but like, our responsibility as women is to have children. Like, whether or not the world agrees with that or not, it is our responsibility, and we know that as members of the church.
Kind of what our bodies do every month.
Yeah, like, our role in the plan of happiness is to bring children. Like, I don't know how else to really explain that, but anyway, their point of saying, like, it's like our own responsibility of when and whether we become parents, to me, that was like the philosophies of men mingled with doctrine.
I kind of like the way that question was worded, just because it's like directly from the temple. Like,
Yeah.
oh, mingled, huh? Directly mingled with scripture, really.
I totally pictured the actor saying that, and I was like, that's hilarious.
I'm like, oh wow,
Yeah.
this is like really Satan. Like, it's totally how Satan works, though. It's like he starts off and it's like referencing, this is the talk that she gave, and it was all good and great, and here are the things that we think of it, and it's, some of the stuff is super awesome, and you're like, yeah, and all he does is have to slip that one little thing in there that makes you really uncomfortable, and you're like, wait, I don't think that's right.
Yeah, I'm more focused on like the first question in this group of questions, but I just said that the tone felt like the women who wrote What Women Know, they were feeling like they needed to defend all women because, not all women are mothers, and even, I don't know, even as mothers, not all mothers are nurturing or, stay-at-home moms.
Not all mothers are motherly.
Yeah, and so how does that make those women feel? It makes them feel like they're inadequate or something because they're not perfect mothers or whatever. But I definitely think that they assumed that Sister Beck's talk was directed towards women, and it's not, but it's directed towards moms. So.
That's true. Or not even just moms, but people that have an influence on raising children was kind of more of what I got out of it. It's not just you're the title of mother. Like, even like teachers and older siblings, you still have an influence on raising children. And I think that's what everyone has a little bit of a motherly role when it comes to being around children.
Right. Yeah. Just as women, that's like our natural instinct is to have like some kind of motherly part about us.
Yeah. Okay, the next question. If there were a document titled What God Knows About Women and Mothers, which of the two articles which of the two articles you read would most closely resemble that?
So, again, I would have to go with Sister Beck's talk. Like I said, there are certainly truths in the other one, but it's not full truth. And I mean, Sister Beck is a representative of Christ, and so, I mean, not that she would never make mistakes, I guess, but just like, I mean, there was just so much truth in her talk compared to the other one, and especially how it's asked too is what God knows about women and mothers. Um, the article about what women know is focused on how we're equals with men, like how we're not always going to be, seen as mothers or nurturing or, whatever we're doing. But Sister Beck's talk focuses on women and mothers, and so I would have to go with that one.
I don't know, I almost have to disagree with that just because the title seems like something you hear, like the title of a sermon in a Christian church, like, this is what God knows. Really, it would be like everything. That would be the sermon, but like,
not everything.
Just the fact that it's like so bold in saying it kind of makes me think that it would be the other way around. Yeah. Just because it's like, this is what God knows about women and mothers as two different things. We're going to tell you the difference between them. And
that's an interesting point. I didn't even think of that.
Like when I see that, I just think of like the little billboards outside of churches that's like, hell doesn't have air conditioning and like, like things like that.
Yeah, I wanted to say what women know, but I don't know, looking at it, I guess I felt like it was Sister Beck's talk that fit more closely. But again, it could be both. I just said Sister Beck's because I think the most important role for women and men is to be mothers and fathers. And like, in order for us to become like God, because that's what we're striving to become, our goal is to be a parent. So that should be our main priority, not only in this life, but later on, if we can't become parents in this life.
Okay, what do you know a woman's role to be in the Father's plan?
I said, obviously, to become a mother, because, I don't know, that's just, I think, the most important thing for women. But also, I think, to be a wife and to be independent and, just be kind and serving to everyone around us. And those are just, like, basic things. I'm sure there's a lot more that a woman's role should be, but overall, I think, being a mom and being independent are the main things.
Well, I just thought of this. So we have some friends that we're like super close with, and we're in California, and she got this idea they're both teachers, she got this idea that they need to move to Washington. They're not members of the church or anything, but they need to move to Washington for the benefit of their daughter, because the schools are better up there. And so, in bringing it back to a woman's role, she has been able to influence her husband, who both of their families are all here, but has been able to influence him to agree to it and basically start making plans to move 1,000 miles away because of her influence. And so I think that women, like, we don't want them to leave, but I think she's using her unrighteous dominion as a woman to control her husband and daughter's lives. But I think our influence is really strong and not underappreciated, but almost unexpected. I don't think we realize how strong of an influence we have until we get crazy ideas in our head and we're like, yeah, we're going to move to Washington next year because this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
in the world, I mean, the world kind of tells us, you know, men are the ones with all the good ideas, and women, you just sit back and clean the house type thing. But a woman's influence can be, well, can either make or break, I think, everything.
Yeah, that's exactly, like, seriously exactly what I was just going to say. I mean, our role in our Father's plan is to be an influence to our children and to our husbands and to everybody around us. And I understand what like what women know, the people who wrote that. I understand what they're trying to do because they're worried that if women stay in the home, they're not going to have an influence. But I mean, I think that's one of our most important roles is to influence our kids because they're our future. Like, they're gonna, if we have 4 kids, our 4 kids are gonna influence way more people than we could ever influence with just ourselves. And so, I mean, our role specifically is to be a part of a family and to have a family of our own. But I think it's also to influence people in society, just like everything we've been learning about in this class, making an influence in society, like according to family regulations and everything like that.
Well, and this kind of goes along with the next question of a man's understanding, but when women are in the home and raising children, they're not raising all girls that are going to do the same thing. There's boys in there, too, that are going to understand, wow, my mom worked really hard to make our home a good place, and it really benefited me. And they're going to grow up and be able to share that with people, and along with husbands, too. They're going to, hopefully, understand my wife works really hard to make the home a good place. Sorry, I just had to skip ahead to the next question. So the man's understanding and conviction of a woman's role, how does that dramatically impact the eternal well-being of families, children, and women?
Well, I think that we need men just as they need us as women, and we rely on each other to build each other up and support each other. And without the other, I don't think that we could properly function as a family. And our children, as a result, can view each of our roles negatively. And I think that even demeaning actions from either party, you know, man or woman, mother or father, can definitely affect the way that children think of gender roles.
Yeah, Cassie and I, like before we started the recording, we were just talking about how feminism has changed so much. Like, it's gone from, you know, making sure that women have equal rights, you know, voting and everything else like that, pay, to like they're actually putting down men now. And we've moved past that point of wanting to be equal, you know, because sometimes men have that stigma of women can't influence anybody, but at the same time, women are starting to believe that men can't do that either. And so having that equal, not necessarily equal, but that's that mindset of like, I can influence just as much as you can within the family is so, so important.
Oh, I like the next question. Okay, so the Savior has said in the last days, even the very elect shall be deceived. How can we avoid being deceived by the world's philosophies of men and women's roles?
I think that goes back to being educated on the doctrine of the church. I mean, so many things can be said for how we're supposed to live our lives in society, but if we don't understand what the doctrine is, we'll be confused, you know, in a split second.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think that it's important that we hold on to, you know, what the church teaches us and not stray away from, I guess, what society is teaching. And it is hard because, I don't know, just with everything going on with like Kate Kelly and like all the feminists. But I think it is like really kind of driving members apart in the church because we're letting it affect us in ways that shouldn't affect us. And I don't know, it's kind of like a really touchy subject in the church right now, and I don't know. I think it's important that we just hold on to what we strongly believe and not try and let contention happen.
I like that. I was just thinking about how when I did the prep for this, I was like, okay, I read Sister Beck's talk, and then I was like on the spiritual high. I'm like, man, I feel so good about myself. Like, yeah, I can do this mothering thing. You know, I could be a mom. And then I read the next one, and I was like, oh, that doesn't feel like that. Obviously, the Spirit wasn't there testifying to me, making me feel so good afterwards. Like, that, it was different. And I think we have to focus on how the Spirit testifies to us. Because if you don't, you're just like, oh yeah, logically, that makes a lot of sense. But if it's not in your heart, then it's not quite right. So definitely have to rely on the Spirit for all of
Yeah,
the
that is a really good point. Because as much as we can learn the doctrine, if we don't have a testimony of it, then it's not going to matter.
Yeah.
True. And I think, not even having just like a testimony, but having like a really firmly planted testimony about it, because if it's not strong enough, then we are gonna, let the adversary get to us, and then our opinions will change about things.
Logic will take over, and I like, Satan is so tricky because I love watching like educational TV and like History Channel, even though History Channel like always ends up on aliens and like conspiracy theories and stuff. But I love learning stuff like that, and so I always have to remind myself, like, have to take it with a grain of salt, because not everything you see or read is true.
Yeah.
It's tricky like that. We have to be aware that even in the church, there is going to be people that are deceived, like it says. Any other questions, comments, issues?
No, I think I actually talked about everything I had written down.
Yeah.
No, I even went through and like copy and like put the talks in Word documents this time so I could highlight the things, because I'm always scrambling of like, where did it say that? Extra prepared this time. It only took 12 weeks to get there.
I know. At the end of the semester. That's awesome. Do we meet next week?
I don't think so, because Wednesday's the last day.
Okay. Okay. Sounds fabulous.
Oh, we do, we don't meet with each other next week. We're supposed to meet with a partner.
Oh.
And talk about Amazing Grace.
Oh, yes. Okay, I remember now.
I know. I have to get in touch with my partner. I was like, oh, maybe they're in our groups and we already have their emails. No, new partners.
I know. Darn it.
I was like, man, I would want to talk about that with, like, someone I know, but okay, fine.
I know. Oh, well. Well, it's been great to getting to know you guys.
Yeah.
Have a good end of the semester.
Yeah, good luck with finals.
Thanks. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.